I'm googling up things.
All right, good evening. Welcome to the February 1st, 2023 Conservation Commission meeting. In accordance with the provision of MGL Chapter 30A, Section 20, notice hereby given that the Conservation Commission will meet on Wednesday, November 2nd. I probably shouldn't be read, though. I don't know why it says November 20th. Is it an older one?
It is
We're
Wednesday,
meeting today,
February
February
1st.
1st. Additional public access to the meeting shall be done via Zoom online video conferencing. This application will allow users to view the meeting and provide comments during allocated windows. To join, follow the web link or call the dial-in number listed below under the call time to order. Please be advised the meeting will be audio and videotaped for a future rebroadcast by the Norfolk Community Television. And we have a special guest, Dave Torrey. Everyone wave to Dave.
There he is.
All right. So our first agenda item is a public hearing for 16 Litchfield Avenue, notice of intent. I'd like to accept a motion to open the public hearing.
Maggie Crow, so moved.
Adam's Liquor second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. The applicant has requested continuance until the March 1st meeting. They just received their DEP number?
They have not received their file number yet. So they were hoping to continue until the March 1st hearing when they will have that DEP file number.
So what we'll do in this case, Caitlin's going to work with the applicant to make sure everything's up to snuff as to what we would expect in a regular COC. We'll discuss it next meeting. She'll have preliminary general orders or conditions ready for us to sign if we agree with everything on there. And so the procedure, so that the applicant doesn't have to wait an entire another month to get, so because it seems that DP is a little behind on getting a file number on this case. So it's not that much work involved in this, so.
No, it's a
dry.
very straightforward project. It's there's a failed cesspool, so the project is installation of a new septic system within buffer zone only.
Is it taking up any square footage that it's not currently? Is it expanding at all?
Yeah, so cesspools are significantly smaller than what a system is required to be today, particularly the leaching field.
So they're replacing a cesspool with a septic?
Right.
Okay.
So what our plan is now is, if anyone has any other questions, we'll go over all of this next month. So this is just to give the applicant some time to get their DEP file, work with Caitlin, and then get everything written down for us for next month, and they'll be here then. So anybody have any other comments or questions? Okay. So now I'd like to accept a motion to continue the hearing to March 1st, 2023 at 7:01.
Alfini, so moved.
Bellstone, second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. So we'll have that at 7:01 next month. All right. Next, we have an action item for 15 Lincoln Road, request for COC. Caitlin?
So since the last hearing, the applicant submitted a response letter dated January 24th, 2023. In the letter, the applicant NextGrid seemingly agreed to follow or address almost all of the short and long-term action items that I had outlined in my comment letter that we went over at the January hearing. There was one item that Next Grid wanted clarification from the commission on exactly, I believe in terms of the area that the action item was referring to. I think Mr. Dorfler might be able to better address what they're hoping to get clarification on.
Uh-oh.
Volume?
May here representing Next Grid. And we also have Nathan Collins too. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut anyone off.
No, you're good. We just couldn't hear you at first. We can hear you now.
Oh, you can hear me now? Sorry.
Yeah.
All good.
Yes, okay.
Okay. Yeah, and Nathan Collins, he's the engineer with Next Grid. He's also on. His internet is a little spotty, so he's hearing most words, about every other word. So he's going to stay off camera to hopefully we can, his internet will be a little bit easier staying off camera. But at any rate, yeah, so the question that we had, we just wanted to ensure that we were doing the proper area of seating. And just to clarify then, because we submitted as part of the response, the attachment C, there's a circle area on that attachment C, and we just wanted to clarify that that was the area that the commission was looking to be reseated. And then there was another question that we had. So that was the initial clarification that we were seeking, and then there was one other one on exactly what could be used to reseat, towards reseating that. Give me 1 second, I can pull that up. And hopefully Nathan can hear me and correct me if I'm saying anything wrong here, but right, so we have no objection to looming and seating the area. The 6 inches of loam in this area could be a little difficult to achieve because the equipment access is a little bit limited. So we were wondering if the commission would be willing to use peat moss. We can use the bags. It's generally lighter. It's at a smaller thickness. That was something that we would be hoping that the commission would be willing to consider. So the two things, one is the area, and also if using peat moss would be acceptable.
Do we have this picture that we can bring up on the screen so everybody can see it, possibly?
So, yeah, and
Of the
there-
area?
The last one, if you want to bring that up.
I don't think I have this picture.
Yeah, I don't have the ability to share, or else I'd bring it up.
And then should be one of the last pages.
Oh. Let's see, maybe I do.
There it is, right there, there we go.
So this was a figure I put together just using one of the latest aerial images where you can generally see where there appears to be sedimentation that has happened beyond the limit of work. And based on what I've seen out on site. So yeah, again, yeah, that's a general area.
How do you feel about the peat, the moss? You accept the,
The only issue I could see would be in terms of whether or not it would provide enough moisture for the seed mix.
My only concern would be the amount of nitrogen it would take out of whatever existing soil is there to be able to break it down, because the soil's going to start trying to break it down. And that's going to take all the nitrogen out of the soil that is there, and I doubt that what's there is going to grow. That would be
yeah, the moss
my
is
main concern, and it's not as stable
Physically,
as soil.
right.
I have no experience using peat moss.
How big is that area? Also, is that a good size area, or 50 by 100, or?
But I would say roughly. It's not, there was, it was stormwater that carried it down there, so there's kind of, different flow patterns, so it's not, an exact shape. Most of the sediments concentrated just over the limit of work. I think, I don't have a ton of experience with peat moss either. I do believe it does hold a significant amount of moisture, although so the current soil that's there, the sediment is gravelly sand. With just the addition of peat moss, I'm not sure how well those would work together.
That will absorb, won't it? Peat moss will absorb the
It
water
will,
out of the,
but
what's under
generally
it,
you add the fertilizer
to it.
to it to assist because it takes so much of the
Yeah.
Could they add like,
nutrients out of the soil to break down the peat moss as natural.
could they add reduced amount of topsoil with peat moss?
A mix?
No,
Yeah, I
I
think
mean, you could do that. I mean,
a combination.
sometimes they use it as a top coat over the soil to absorb moisture but again, you gotta be careful with the erosion, and we're in a water area, so you probably won't be able to add fertilizer where it's at because of the erosion that we've had already and how close it is to the buffer areas.
I don't think, so it appears, or from my opinion, is that the New England Conservation Wildlife Mix was used on that slope area, which had similar gravelly sand, and that mix did establish, actually out of the entire site, that was one area that the seed mix established the most. So I think, I wouldn't be concerned about having to add additional fertilizer there. Using just peat moss, I can't really say for certain whether or not that would work. I think maybe using a combination might be a good compromise. I believe it's 2 inches of loam is going to be used on other portions of the site. Is that correct?
I believe so. Nathan would be
The areas that we're top dressing, yeah.
Oh, great. You're coming through,
would that
Nathan. Great.
be- So, using peat moss with a soil, 2 inches of loam as a soil amendment, would that be a compromise that could work?
I was under the impression that the reason they want to do this is they can't get a machine in there to get the loam in there, because it's too wet. Am I wrong in saying that? Is that the?
Well,
It's-
if it's a smaller thickness, we could use bagged loam.
Okay. So you'd carry it in. All right.
Correct. Yeah, our concern is 6 inches of topsoil over that area, and I apologize if I'm spotty.
Does,
Would be very challenging to get down there just with bags.
So can they just put the loam in and not the moss? Or is 2 inches of loam not enough with what's there to establish the grass or the mix we want to put in there?
Well, the other option is we extend, in the orders of condition, another follow-up visit in 6 months or a year on these areas that they've reduced the amount of loam that we recommend. So if we agree on 2 inches of loam, then maybe we go out in 6 months and then again in a year to make sure.
I'm just concerned that the moss is gonna be more of a detriment to it
In-
than,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, yeah, I mean, it does have the ability to hold moisture, that,
Right.
no question.
And it would be a significant addition of organic material.
I agree, and
Yeah.
that's the other
It's a
thing.
sand.
Yeah.
But it-
Sand, right.
It needs to be mixed with, some soil so
Soil,
that,
yep,
Yeah.
okay.
so that the organic mix stays, so. To have some soil stability there.
So it would be, I guess, comparable to, adding soil amendments and then putting hay on top of it.
Yeah,
Although peat moss has, more value than just hay. It would provide organic material, nutrients, and, the moisture holding capacity. So, I personally don't see that it would be more of a harm. I think the mixture of the two would be appropriate.
yeah. No, I feel that they're in a tough spot because it's all built and it's in the worst area possible to get to. So I think the only, to try to compromise is just, if we put in less soil, a third of the soil, then we should increase just the site follow-up in future use. And as long as they, so that they know, we don't have to go asking permission, they know that in, say, pick the time you want to go, September, and maybe next June, you go in to do a site. What's that?
So I believe the ultimate goal would be to file for a complete certificate of compliance as soon as vegetation is established out there. So that would be, you never know what the weather's going to do in the state, but assuming they can seed in the spring, by late spring, early summer, there should be established vegetation out there.
Okay.
I think the risk is on them that if it doesn't work, then they have to do something else.
Yeah, I agree with
Yep.
Gina. I mean, I think, Reagan, I'm sorry. I agree. That's my opinion, that we'll let them do it, but if it doesn't work, then they'll have to redo it. So 2 inches probably would work, but 6 inches is best, but that's a lot of work to get 6 inches of soil down there. Might be a little, if they get 2 and it starts, then, the natural process of the annual foliage dying off and rebuilding the soil, will, if they can get it through the first year, the first winter, then it'll probably be okay. So,
Okay, great. So just to clarify, then it would be the 2 inches of topsoil plus the seed?
yeah, 2 inches of topsoil, and then you mix in some peat moss, and then add the mix that Caitlin has identified.
Right.
So,
Which was, and as Kaylee mentioned earlier, that is the mix that we use for the other areas too. That took pretty well.
sound good?
Yes, and then I believe you said there was another thing, item that you were hoping to discuss. Or was
Those
that
were
it?
the 2 points of clarification that we had. If the board or if the commission has other questions that we could expand on, we're here. You're happy to answer any questions you have.
Now, the other areas are good, they don't need to be reseeded at all, or any seed added, or they look pretty good?
There are other portions of the site that will be loamed and seeded as well.
Okay.
And those areas were identified by the planning board's peer review consultant. I believe NextGrid's agreement with the planning board also is aiming to have the site, the other areas loamed and seeded in the spring, with the follow-up late spring, early summer.
Okay, so that's already in.
And we have the 25,000 cash bond.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Right, and so, yeah, so there's a cash performance bond associated with that work.
Okay.
Does anything needed to be added to our COC or our order of conditions for the follow-up, or is that already in there? Are we doing the follow-up? Is that, if we're gonna do the mix, is there gonna be a follow-up?
So, in terms of this filing, I think the commission could consider issuing a partial certificate of compliance for the solar array and associated structures, but not for final site stabilization and seeding of the area of sedimentation. Once the site is re-vegetated late spring or early summer, they would then have to come back and file for a complete certificate of compliance, which was addressed in my letter and agreed to by NextGrid. So they are aware that there would be a separate filing for that once the site is stable and vegetated.
It would be a submit to request for a full certificate.
Correct.
That's what the letter said. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so we want to, anybody have any other questions or
I
any
just
comments?
have one in regards to the purchase. Wasn't this property being sold? Is it been sold and NextGrid owns it, or I thought there was a sale on this, and that was an issue the last meeting, or am I wrong?
I'm not aware of that.
NextGrid owns the property.
And
Yeah.
they will continue to own it. So as long as that.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought there was a sales and purchase they were
So
wanting, that's why they wanted this.
we lease portions of the site to the developer.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so we accept a motion to do the partial COC? Is that what we want to do, or do you want to do a full COC?
Just the partial.
Okay.
For the solar array, and, fencing, things like
Okay.
that.
For construction work, but not final stabilization.
Right.
Put it in a
Okay.
motion.
So,
Okay, I'll make a motion that, hold on, let me get to the right place. So for 15 Lincoln Road, DEP file number 2400624, to issue a partial certificate of compliance, including all construction work, not including the final stabilization of the soil and landscaping.
do I have a second?
Adam Zucker, second?
All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes?
Thank you.
So,
All right. Thank you very much. Really
good.
appreciate working with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're good here. We don't have to, this was an agenda item, not a meeting item, so that's why we didn't open or close a meeting, so that's why. All right, so the next thing we have is 182 Seccong Street, a violation notice.
Yes. So this was first brought to my attention when I was in the area investigating flooding issues that a resident had reached out to the office about. While I was out in the field, I noticed that recent work had taken place at the 182 Seekonk Street property. Definitely within the buffer zone, and what looked like work potentially within bordering vegetated wetlands. Following my observations that I made in the field, I conducted a review of online GIS information, including aerial imagery from a few different sources. And based on review of those aerials, I noted extensive amount of work had taken place within the buffer zone, including the 50-foot no disturb. And it also, the aerials also appear to show that a significant amount of work has taken place within bordering vegetated wetlands, potentially greater than 5,000 square feet. And Elaine, if you could bring up the figures for that. Site, it's the one at the bottom. And then if you wanted to go to second, or the last page.
Mm-hmm. It's pretty crazy.
We're watching from the sky.
So this aerial up here from Bing Maps actually is the latest aerial that I was able to find. It was likely taken sometime in the fall of last year. So you can see there's an old farm pond down at the bottom of the photo, and in the rear portion of that yard, it looks like some of it might be a garden. There's hardscaping around what looks like a pond of some sort, and then in the wooded area to the north, there is also clearing and what looks like fill activities. And then, if you want to go up. So this was taken fall of 2021, and you can actually see work taking place on the site. There's stockpiles of soil. I don't know if that was being removed or brought in. It looks like there might have been some soil placed near the edge of that pond. And while these are the most recent aerials, there are currently no trees or shrubs along the bank of that pond. Has been completely cleared.
Where is the pond again? Is it the green in the corner by the pool? Did I see a green circle area?
Yep. And then it's likely invasive aquatic vegetation on top there.
It's not the little circle, it's the big
Mm-hmm.
piece that's on the side, to the left.
Right?
Right.
Point down.
Right.
Right on the,
Oh, okay. I was thinking, yeah, that's what I'm saying, what is that? It looks like a little pond.
It does look like a little.
Oh, it is a duck
It's a
pond,
duck
okay.
pond.
All right.
Can I address that?
It's not a open meeting for, this is because it's a violation meeting,
Yes.
we're discussing it.
Okay. So why am I here to discuss this, or? am I here-
We can talk to you after she presents everything that she's
I'm
found.
sorry.
So,
So there's a retaining wall out there, isn't there, for drainage? And where is all that, where the hand is? In that wooded area?
No?
So you can barely make it out. There is an outlet pipe that drains that, or that connects the pond to the wetlands along, I think originally when the subdivision behind this property was being designed, I think there were plans to have a roadway there, which is why that there appears to be like an easement there.
The reason I'm asking, I've been on this property. I've been out to this property several years ago. I've been on Mr. Woodall's property, and we were clearing part of this back then because it was plugged up. So I'm going back a few years on where we're at and what's going on there. The other spots I'm not aware of, and I'm not sure what I'm looking at, but, so the retaining wall and where there is a retention area for water is in that green section in the back left corner there.
Right.
Okay.
So that, I guess that may have been a farm pond. Historically, it was not stormwater for the subdivision. So under the Wetlands Protection Act and the bylaw, it is considered a wetland resource area.
Okay.
No, it's a paddock. It's a paddock, corral.
Where?
What is the use of it?
Of what?
Well, maybe, so are you the property owner?
Yes.
Okay.
I built
Maybe
the
we
pond.
Well, let's wait and ask the chair. Is it okay if he presents his,
What's that?
can we ask the property owner his side of the story now?
Are you?
Yeah, I think
He can display it and tell us what's going on a lot easier than, because it's a big area.
If you want to grab a microphone, state your name.
Can I walk over there?
Yeah, just grab a microphone.
This isn't court.
You have to,
Yeah, that's for the people outside,
the
Mr.
people
Woodall,
in
so
the
they can hear what
recording.
you're saying, that's all.
yeah, it won't get recorded for the TV. Oh, is it on?
I don't know.
Just hold it up,
Hello?
Andrew. Is it on?
Is it working okay, Andrew?
Okay.
I didn't know you were
All
going
right.
to be quizzed.
So this pond here, was this a retention pond for runoff from the street? It does hold water because there's like 3 or 4 natural springs that come up out of the ground, because when we dug it down, the water was already there. There's a head wall that's here that runs through, and the outlet is over here. And what has happened over the years is it's only a 10-inch pipe. It should be something larger, but that's besides the point. What happens is this floods, and it gets 6 feet higher than the back of my property, and the pipe clogs. So the town has come, and I've come, I'm not lying, I'm just telling you the truth, I've come and cleaned out the swale. There's a drainage swale that comes through there for the overflow. If you don't clean it out, it comes into my property. This wasn't deemed wetland when I bought the property or when we did the subdivision. I built all the roads, I put all the roads in too. The only wetland was way out back, and then there is wetland, this area here that you were talking about that looks like I cleared, it wasn't cleared. This area here has been here since Nelson Lorne owned the property in 1982. This was the original construction site that they used to put all the stone, dirt, loam, all that material. And the construction road used to come down, comes through the pillars, went straight down into the back, into the cul-de-sac behind the property. This is in here, and then it goes down was the wetland. My property does not show any wetlands on it on my plan. But I try and stay out of there because I don't need more area to take care of, but I was there, and you're correct, I was up there doing stuff, and I was pulling out what happens is this is all Russian olive trees. And as they grow, they die, and they grow, and they die, and they grow, and they die. And they filled the spillway. The town came in 4 years ago, and they did clean it out with me, because I was doing it because the water got up to 6 inches before it started going over again. And it has gone into my property. I dug that pond there too for my ducks. It's only 3 feet deep. It's not a big pond. So when I went up there, the pond was flooding again. So when I went up there, I cleaned out the debris again. And then where the head wall was, there's all kinds of trees that have fallen down. I cleaned the head wall out. And I have this 40 to 60 foot pole that I use. And I stuff it up the pipe. And you can see it if you would like to come. I was hoping you would come. If you see it, and I stuff it up there and it clogs. And what's happening, all the trees around it, there's a bunch of pine trees and stuff, they've all died. And what happens is all the branches fall off. So they get in the water. When the water's going out, they go to the pipe, they clog the pipe. The pond filled up. Now it had filled up this time about 4.5 feet above the top of the pipe. Another 2.5 feet, it'll start coming out into my property. That was why I went up and cleaned it out. I did take the trees out that were dead up on the bank. Like you said, you're 100% correct. I did take them out because all those trees, this is a pretty picture, but all those trees that are around there now are dying. They're dead. There's on the other side, the other person on the other side, there's probably 50, 60 trees over there that are dead. All the pine trees have all died.
Well, I think we need to stop you before you go too far, because, we don't need a long meeting. We just have to figure out whether it's jurisdictional or not. So if you have a site plan that shows that as a...
I can't get the plan anymore because it should be on record of the town anyways.
Or if it was a subdivision that was approved by the planning board.
Yep. What happened was Nelson Lawrence started the project in the mid-80s.
Honestly, I don't care if anyone else wants to know the long history of the subdivision. We just care about whether that's jurisdictional.
Okay.
Man-made ponds can be jurisdictional. If it's on a subdivision plan showing that it's a stormwater management feature, then you would actually be required to maintain it. So if you're maintaining a stormwater system, then you're actually out of compliance because you're not maintaining the subdivision stormwater system. If it is a man-made pond that is now showing, wetland characteristics, then it could have become over time jurisdictional. So we're just going to have to establish that. And so if we can look at some historical site plans and try and figure out what it is, and if it needs to be maintained or not, and then if you're in violation of our laws or not, that's what we gotta get to.
Sure.
Okay.
But the town has them.
All right, so we just need to find, we just need to figure that out.
And none of it is town property. Because most of the land is owned by another person over here. He owns the pond.
So where is the discharge from the roadway coming from?
There's one that's up in the front of my house, which is not on any plan. Was put in there after I had my property. The town put it in, but there's no permits for it. There's a drainage, and that comes down, but that shouldn't be there. The other one comes from Creek Street, comes through the 2 yards. There's an easement that comes through and discharges into there.
And when was the subdivision built again?
Yeah, this one was put in 90, from 92, I think, to 95.
Okay. And I have heard from other people that they do think it's partially spring-fed.
It is.
And then the way a lot of the properties are pitched on, especially on Creek Drive, there's probably a good amount of overland flow.
Which is fine. We have engineers create pocket wetlands that go into the water table, and they're designed to hold a certain volume, and you actually plant them with wetland plants. If it's engineered, it's still a stormwater management system. It's just designed differently than a detention pond, which is a pond that's meant to drain out. It's a retention pond versus a detention pond,
Right.
which drains out at the end of 72 hours.
It's a retention pond.
Yes, so it could be a retention pond, and then you would not be in violation. You should actually somebody should be maintaining it so that it ensures that the volume that it's supposed to be.
This drainage
Contained.
swale
Yeah.
is literally from, here's my property, and that's the drainage swale, which is actually the guy who's over here, but nobody maintains it. And the only reason I maintain it is because when it fills and floods, the top of the pond and my house, this is some places between 6 and 4 feet higher than my first floor. So if this pond decides to really start to flow, which it has flown, it comes right into my yard. So that's why I do the maintenance. I don't go out there and build nothing, I don't do anything. In this area here that you do see, that you were talking about, that you see on this picture, that's my garden. And I did rototill it with my little machine. There's no doubt I did it. But it's just a garden. There's nothing. In this piece here, it's my ducks. And I walk them down the little path here and they go into the pond.
Well, I think we want, sorry, I'm speaking a lot now, but I think we want you to be able to enjoy your yard. It's just, if it is jurisdictional and it's our jurisdiction to review what you're going to do, even if it's putting in a garden within 100 feet of a wetland. That's by state law, that's what we get to look at, even if it's on private property.
But it isn't on the plans as wetland.
All right, well, then we're going to figure that out. We're going to
The only
investigate it.
wetlands, like I said, is down in here, and most of it goes behind Barbara and Elliot's house. And then it goes all the way down to Creek Street.
So
Barbara and Elliot.
Mr. Woodall, I think you've said plenty for
Yeah.
tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have
I
work to
don't want to
do.
go any further, so thank you for
I do
speaking
have
to us, but
Oh, you have a
one question. When did you move into the house? What year?
I think I built the house in 95.
Okay. What happened in 2002 with the commission?
What happened? That was with my neighbor. There used to be, I don't know, cherry trees and apple trees. And any fruit tree grows and dies. That's how they are. They're not like an oak or a maple or something. And there were a couple in here. And I took them out. And my neighbors came over from the other side. We get along somewhat. They came over from the other side and started on my 3 kids that were like 3, 4, and 5, questioning them. And I was on the other side of my property, and I seen these 2 people, and I didn't know who. One was your conservation commissioner, whoever was on the board, and then the other one was my neighbor, which I didn't recognize at the time because my concern was, what are these 2 guys over there doing with my kids in my property? So I went over and said something. Your conservation guy, they ran to his house. I went to the door and I said, hey, you don't run to the house. You explained to me what you were doing with my kids. They didn't want to explain anything. So then that conservation guy, he didn't call me into the board. They took me to court. So I had to go in front of a judge and tell the judge what had happened. And the judge told me, can you clean it up? And I said, that's what I was doing. I said, I wasn't going to leave any of these dead trees up there when I have 3 kids. I have 4, but at the time, the 3, I said, I wasn't going to leave any of that stuff up there and have someone get hurt, my kids. That's what that was.
All right.
And then one other time, if you want to know, one other time I was questioned over here. I don't remember the older woman's name. I don't mean to say anything bad, but she came up. She was here for a long time. Someone called Elliot and Barbara. She came up. I walked, showed her my pond. We talked about the ducks. She had ducks. I showed her how I cleaned it out. I put the pole. 4 years ago, the town had to come because it got so bad that I couldn't take care of it alone. And it was so clogged, I couldn't unclog it. So the town ended up having to jet it and clean it all out. Now, what I cleaned up, I always leave. But what happens is every 3, 4, 5 years, the Russian olive trees, those little red berries, I don't know if you've ever seen them, they grow so fast and they die, and they grow and they die. They just build up so much material that you have to move it. Because if you don't, that whole, you can't even see the swale here. And that was all man-made, it was all stone at one time when we built the place. But that's how it's happened. Sorry.
And if you don't mind signing in and then also leaving a number I can reach you at.
Yeah, I'm gonna give you my cell
And then
number.
we can set up a time
Absolutely.
to review everything on site.
Yep.
And then,
And I can show you, you can see that, that area there that you were talking, that, you know, looks like I cleared on the, where I said was the construction site, they used to have trailers and dump trailers, there was all kinds of stuff in there. Only thing I put in there is hardscape. I got some rock, granite, I'm doing a new patio. That's why if you see some marks and I was walking, that's all it was, me walking through, and it's just not frozen right now, so usually this time of year it's frozen. So.
and
My number's on.
David has a comment. Okay. David?
He's got his hand up.
I was just going to say,
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
We can hear you.
So it looks like I'm David Chury, 47 North Street, Chairman of the Conservation Commission, but not able to be there in person. It looks like you're going to continue this to the March meeting, which is good. And I think, yeah, a little bit of research has to take place to determine everything that this gentleman has said and what is the proper action we have to take as a board.
No problem. Whatever I have to do, I'll have no problem.
all right, great. Well, appreciate you coming in here tonight. And again, yeah, I'll be in touch. We can set something up for next week.
Yeah, I don't know, is Saturdays no good for you? Because I don't get home till like 5:30. But I mean, if that's no good for you, we can definitely make it an afternoon. I don't have a problem with that, you know.
I typically try not to make a habit out of working on the weekends.
Yeah.
But yeah, we can figure out a time that works.
Whatever works for you. All set?
And
Thank you.
coordinate with whatever, you have the original plan still of that area? See, this
30 years ago.
is what we need to find out, just,
I
Well,
think
if you go in, it should be on the Stop River Estates.
that's,
That was the name of the subdivision,
Okay,
and I know all
so-
the plans were put over, you know, were turned over because I went through all the, you know, turning over the roads and everything with the city.
Yeah, if it was a
right.
subdivision, then we'll have the.
that's what we need to find out.
We have to keep those records
is,
into perpetuity.
You gotta understand where we're coming from. We take all this very seriously so that,
Yep.
you know, in your business that you want to be treated fairly. So if you found out that we allowed people to infringe on the wetlands, never did anything, and you're building a home, and we don't give you a COC because you infringed on the wetlands, like you let Joe homeowner do it, but you're hard on the developer. That's not fair. So.
But there is a history with you people and me cleaning out that.
That's-
And that's all it is, has been cleaning.
So that's
out.
what
I think we'll
Caitlin's-
get the first step is to get the old plans.
Yeah.
Then we can look at the plans and clearly say what it
Maybe
is, and then
DPW
if
has
needed, we can go and do a
something
site
that-
well,
visit.
we have a gentleman's agreement with Mr. Woodall to go in there and clean that
Okay.
spillway. That's why I want, as a board, we got to talk about that, what I know on
Yeah.
the DPW
So we need to
side.
find out,
'Cause if it's
Yeah,
a
the plans
town-accepted
will-
road, we
yeah.
probably should be maintaining it regularly.
yeah.
Yeah, and it wasn't back then 4 years ago. It was a disaster, so we went in and we cut and we cleared it and we opened it up because it was flooding his backyard at that time.
And it must be because we should be, as a town, doing that because it's part of the
Yes.
roadway drainage.
Yes, but I don't want to get too deep in it because I'm not a drainage guy, I'm the water guy. So, all right, but anyway, on that
Well-
aspect, we do have to
Okay.
investigate this deeper.
Yeah,
But Reagan, we have had that beef with DPW before,
Yes,
that there are rules and regulations and you need to
that
follow
still
them.
have to follow, yes.
oh, yeah.
So I'm
Yeah,
not-
there's
I'm not
this
saying-
is two sides of the
I'm
story.
not saying that's waived, I'm just saying
If it's stormwater, they're required to maintain it. If it's a wetland, they're required to come to us to make sure they can
That's-
do what they need
And
to
that's what we
do.
gotta
The
do.
issues that we've had in the past and,
Yes, sir.
you know, those are gone by the wayside. Just like Lake Street.
Yes, I agree with you.
Rules are, need to file NOI with us when you're doing any road work, any gravel work
Yes.
that runs through wetlands. That wasn't being done. They just
So
added
it's-
stuff.
Well, then I'll call
plowed
the
it.
Department of Environmental Protection and tell on them if they
You know,
don't want to
so
listen to me.
This is the stuff that, this,
So.
unfortunately, ends up with, yeah, we do it all the time, and then we come to find out, oh, wait a minute, is this a wetlands? Is this a waterway? Is this, you know?
Exactly.
Well, we'll
a shrub
figure it out.
pond? Is, you know,
Yes,
what
I think
exactly
so.
this is, so.
Other, figuring out what exactly happened, what's jurisdictional, that's obviously needs to be figured out, but potentially coming up with, an actual plan for how this is going to be maintained would benefit not only you and the town, but, all the other residents in this area, because it kind of sounds like it's just,
Well, it's really not
the
a
can
huge issue for the people
kept
above
being
me,
kicked
because
down the road.
If it was, in the 90s, I can't speak to it. I mean, today, under the stormwater standards, they probably would have had to put together an operations and maintenance plan. It's just, and especially with towns, do we have the staff to maintain all these,
Yeah, especially,
systems?
We would
So
have
Where the issue
required
arises.
that's probably where the issue arises, is do we have, I know in
recharge stations
Canton.
and stuff like
the-
that going into the pond.
Director's like, I don't have money
Directly
to
into
do
the
that.
pond.
I'm not, we're not doing it. And I'm like, all
So-
right, well, we're supposed to be doing it.
Kind of like the drainage pipe that comes off the edge of the road, right?
Yeah, can't come, because it's
They put it
adding,
on the property line, Butchie Vito put it on the property line, he used to be the DPW director,
yeah.
put it on the property line and let it go, but it's not supposed to be there, it's not on any plan.
No, we put in recharge stations. How much salt did you
Yeah,
dump
you
on the
need it on a
roads last
plan,
year? How
and
many
you need
tons?
easements in order to be able to access it to maintain it. Otherwise, the property owner can rip it out, and then the street floods, So those are issues of crossing your Ts and dotting your Is, and we'll figure out what this is.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so since that was just part of our agenda, we don't have to open or close a meeting. So,
Did anyone
We're
see
getting the
Dave's-
hang of this.
Did everybody see Dave's comment?
what?
What, no, what'd he say?
Oh,
You go, Al? No.
yeah.
Alan should clarify that he was
No,
there
below
for the
it.
water department.
Yeah.
Nah,
Yeah,
no, we're throwing him
that
under the
one.
bus.
No, I wasn't there.
Anyways,
Under
Just toss me under the bus. Just because I happen to know the gentleman, I know his daughter, and I've been on his property and all, that's why I wanted to.
Any
get
unplugged
him.
the-
See you later, let's discuss
Okay, we
this.
should figure it out
Cover.
first.
No, I have not been in the pool.
Have you swam with the ducks?
Yes. I just need to vouch that he did have an issue 4 or 5 years ago, and it was flooding his backyard, and you can see his yard there. If we were one of those people, we wouldn't want that happening.
No way.
I'm wondering
So
if that's
the
part of what you
DPW
saw on the aerial photos of the change.
Yeah, well, the DPW went in and I was there. I was one of the persons
We
cutting
gotta
and pulling.
figure out what it is. I mean, an isolated wetland doesn't have an inlet or an outlet.
Yes.
This has an outlet.
Barry
Is it
LaRivia has
just coming in from the
information on
roadway,
it.
It
if
looks like
it's
it may
attached to a
even be a
BBW, those are all
subdivision.
things that we need to figure out.
Yep.
You know, it might have been something that might have been planned in the subdivision, and then everybody, all the builders leave, and then,
That's what happened to it, and Barry's working on that to just, find out what we gotta call this and what's gonna be done.
And if there's stop river estates, we should have site plans for, if there's wetlands
Right.
somewhere, then a DEP with our site
But
plans.
you said, Reagan, we have several areas like this in town, but we don't have the manpower to keep them clean.
Yeah.
And they've gone awry where you can't even see them. And we've got engineers in town looking for drainage and stuff, and we're getting it all marked out now
Mm-hmm.
due to the new laws, and we're finding head walls that we never even knew existed.
Yeah,
'cause
they're
in-
mapping them now. They're
Yes.
required under the MS4 to map
Yeah,
them.
so, and now we've got to clean them out, and of course, that's when it's going to come into the Conservation Commission, because what is it? Is it a wetlands? Is it? what is
depends
it?
on what year it was constructed,
So-
if it was maintained, how well it was maintained.
Barry's working on all that diligently with, I don't know if it's PA or if it's, I don't know, the other engineering company in town, but that's what they're doing.
That's why too many towns are moving towards, like Millis has created a stormwater utility.
Yes.
So people are
We have a division.
taxed on how much impervious surface they have on their property, just like a sewer and water tax.
Yeah.
And it's going to help towns be able to meet these requirements, to be able to manage the roadway drainage systems, illicit discharges, outfalls, and especially because every project, including town projects, like the new fire station will be required to have stormwater management, and it'll have to be maintained, and it's much more, then that whoever, DPW, the fire department, has to add that to their operations budget to be able
Yeah.
to then maintain these stormwater systems. So that's the way we're moving. So be prepared for a future other tax.
Yeah. I gotta tear all my walkways out now and put them back to dirt.
Exactly. And incentivize
Well,
people to use low-impact design on their properties.
Get some nice pavers.
Yes.
So, all right, great.
All right, everyone had a chance to look at the minutes from the December 7th and January 4th meetings? Yes, no, maybe so?
I looked at the ones I was here, which was January 4th. I wasn't here December 4th.
One was
I did read.
Snoozeville, right?
And thank you, Maggie, for taking time to review those.
Right at the last minute as usual. All right.
So is, anybody have any questions? Are everybody ready to vote?
We can vote.
I was not here, Jim.
You good?
I'm good. I wasn't here
Al?
that meeting.
Al's good? Val?
Yep.
Al, Val?
All good?
Move forward.
Should we vote on them individually, accepting?
All right, so,
We can do them together. We can do
Okay.
them together.
all right,
Well,
I need
maybe
someone.
separate, because Alan has to recuse for January 4th.
Yes. I was absent.
Okay,
I
so
was absent, but I reviewed the minutes.
we'll do them separately since,
You
and
were absent.
Okay.
Did
When
you
were
miss
you
a meeting?
absent?
I was, I wasn't there for January, so
December
okay.
7th or
January.
January? Okay.
Val, were you at the December 7th meeting?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
All right, so
Adam Zucker moves that we accept the minutes of December 7th, 2022.
a second?
Maggie Crowe, second.
All in favor? The aye?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Recused.
Motion passes.
You weren't there December
not there.
7th either?
No, I was there the 7th.
Okay, so
Alright.
you don't have
So
to
you didn't
recuse for
recuse.
December 7th.
I'm sorry, no. Wait a minute.
Wait your turn, wait your turn.
Just say aye.
January 4th I was there. I was not there on the 7th.
Okay.
So you did
Oh, okay,
properly
so you weren't
recuse.
there
Yes.
on December 7th.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
All right,
Okay.
January 4th, I need
These
a
holiday
motion.
meetings are,
I'm
Adam's-
recused.
Adam Zucker moves we accept the meetings of January 4th, 2003.
Second?
Minutes.
I'll second those.
All right.
And now
All in
Maggie
favor, say
recuses.
aye.
I recuse.
Okay, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
How are you?
I'm
And the motion passes.
David's got company now.
All right.
muted.
All right. Now, the next thing is, we have a correspondence for Eversource right-of-way vegetation maintenance.
yeah, so they, Eversource, similar to last month, they sent out, a letter informing the commission that they were gonna be performing some right-of-way maintenance, activities. And it seems like a lot, some of the work actually overlaps with their, the work they described in their previous correspondence.
I'm sure we've all seen what they've been doing. You can't miss it.
There were
So you want to
quite a
get something
few
real interesting?
large diameter trees on Medway that
Did you
came
see
down.
those?
Yeah.
Huge trees.
5 feet across.
Huge. So sad.
That
Yes.
was, yeah.
They were
I
dead,
could
though.
see how they would, cause an issue if they came down.
But they were dead.
But
It's a dead tree. What are you going to do with it?
So when I was in college,
Sad about it.
we actually took sections of the right-of-way from New Hampshire Power, and some of it they treated with pesticides, and the rest we did a controlled burn, which wasn't very controlled. But then, we'd go in and we'd burn like an acre or so at a time. We'd go in and the entomology department would do insect samples in the two areas to see how much more insect activity they had in the burned area versus the pesticide area, the herbicide, sorry.
Really?
And it turned out it was a lot more beneficial to do controlled burns along the power lines. The only problem was you'd have to keep it controlled.
Yeah, once it gets out of control, it'll be.
Because the first growth in those type of areas is always either pitch pine or low-growth shrubs, and especially pitch pine, if you've ever seen one go up, it goes up really quick. But
I just thought it was funny. I talked about the pine trees in one of the meetings, and Reagan was like, what? I says, you can take them all down as far as I'm concerned. And 2 weeks later, Eversource is in town, and they're taking them all down. I'm like, oh, my God. I mean, Union Street alone, they just wiped it out.
Well, again, the problem becomes when just a natural growth of a tree, as they widen the road of foliage, the trees that are in line now become a problem because all their branches are now reaching out.
Yeah.
And the trees are older and they haven't built up that, wherever the weight is or on a slope, the tree will build. If you look at a tree, the rings will be tighter
Yeah.
on the downhill side and wider on the uphill side, so the tree holds itself up. But when you cut down all the other trees that are beside it, and then these big branches start going out, those are trees that
Kind of
end
coming
up
down.
falling over again.
Yeah.
Because they just have a natural, the area that's lit is the road.
Yeah. Well, I see
That's
that
where
in
the
the
light
clearing.
is, so they keep trying to come over.
Like on Pine Street, the clearing they just did across from the car wash there, they took out all that, but now the pine trees that are there are exposed to the weather, and I'm waiting to see them, they're just gonna start
Really
coming
does
down.
happen, yeah.
Yeah, because
You know?
that happened to my in-law's neighbor. They had probably 10
Yeah,
trees.
you can't
They-
just
once
like
they
do
started
half
taking
the
out a
stand.
couple-
You gotta do the whole stand.
You take,
Yeah, then they started falling over,
Yep.
because they weren't holding each other up. So,
Keep your eyes out.
yeah.
They missed a big one on my property that's marked. They marked it. They left it for some reason, but it has holes all over it, and the top half of the tree is dead. And I'm like, why did they leave this one? Like, it's marked. It's
The,
not-
the end of Union
not the one
Street,
to
there's
leave.
one about this big around, and it's right there, and it's dead, and I'm like, why did they leave that one? But hey,
all right, so,
Well,
so they're gonna.
yeah, so it looks like maybe they didn't finish.
Yeah, they just want to continue to get it done.
Yeah, they're gonna be continuing, so.
All right.
now the next thing is, under new and old business, is the Open Space Committee. So, Caitlin's talked to town council, and it will be under our jurisdiction. So what we want to think about as a commission is, the first thing is how we want to chair it, who we'd like to invite to it, and what commissions or boards that are in town that we think should be part of it. So, as far as open space. So, and then what you feel, we'd start to try to get it all together, what you feel the vision might be for an open space commission. So,
Can we look at some descriptions in other towns and put together
Very good.
like a page that we can then talk about and make comments and suggestions on?
so we're not recreating history here. We can
Right.
try to build on others, but
Yeah.
I'm thinking of, even like the historical commission should have a member on the board as far as open space, and that we should have we should have overlays that have the historic areas, the wetland areas, the fish and habitat areas, the endangered species areas, where we have residential, commercial areas, areas the town already owns, and then we get all those overlays, and it makes it easy for us to then, where do we want to go forward with open space? And, as being part of our commission, I think we're lucky, in my point of view, that we can kind of drive this in the direction we wanted to as far as conservation and, the betterment of, this town pays a lot of money, and people are willing to pay money for maintain our open space in town. And, so I think that's, having some, also think about what's happened in the last 10 or 15 years with conservation. It's gotten better for conservation, but, all I keep thinking is when I hear someone say, we don't need to buy the wetlands because they can't build on it anyway. And then I just remind everyone of Disneyland. That was wetlands, the swamps were drained, and he built it. So what's stopping the federal government from saying anything over a 50,000 square foot, or, 1,000 acres, they'll allow 50%, wetland destruction. So, but if we own the property, then,
Then we own the property.
which we can get really reasonable. So that's something I think we should, those are the type of things that we can look at, and whatever you're passionate for. I know Val, you like the trail systems and that type
It
of
gives it
stuff,
another
and-
layer of protection, because they just passed the Land Preservation Act, which now makes law where any land that's in Article 97, so if we own it, as conservation land, then in order to take it out, you have to go through the state legislature, but it's now law that you have to replace it with like in kind. You essentially can't take it out without replacing it somewhere else in town. Before it was a policy, so you kind of had to do it as a state policy, but it wasn't law, so now it's law.
But this is great feedback, and these are the types of things that, we should almost make maybe a handbook with this type of material, so this, Reagan, but say you're on the commission and then you leave, then the next person comes and they're like, I heard this rumor that there was, this procedure, but we have it written down as, a guidebook of, what you've done, what you've done with trail systems, or, what we've done with the Boy Scouts, a chapter on the Boy Scouts, on the Lions, how we've utilized them in town to, help with open space and conservation. And so, I think, going forward, treating this, because I think a lot of times what happens in town politics is, this is the way we do it, as opposed to a business which is forced to change all the time. And it can't be status quo, you're going to go out of business. You just have to keep recreating yourself. And, the rule of thumb is if you've got a 5-year plan and you're 2 years in and you haven't started about your next 5-year plan, you're probably not going to make it. So it's not at the end of 5 years, what are we going to do now? It's year 2, you're thinking about that following 5-year plan. So I think, I could relate, and probably the others, that when you got here, you're like, well, what do I know about this? Or how are meetings, or, agenda items, how do they work? And if we have a handbook for this commission, it makes it a lot easier to go forward. That, members can look up and say, we have a chapter on this, we have a chapter on trails, and we can build on it of, Val's, this is what we did, how we got it marked. We utilize, the Lions, or.
So you were all members of the MACC, and you haven't created an account and looked through the resources they have on their page, I think that's definitely something you should do. They have a ton of resources. They have a forum where commissioners can ask questions, and, consultants will, respond. So there's definitely a lot of valuable resources and tools already out there.
Yeah, they have a handbook, which is now electronic, which I don't like the electronic, but I have old paper copies.
Like that.
The electronic is too cumbersome, but I could photocopy the old one that I have and give it to everybody. And it's good. It has a lot of resources about commission work. And then I think the open space plan, it should have in the back, like each property and description of that property, and then whatever information we might think to add to it, I think you just build on that over time and keep that history in that plan of these properties.
Yeah, that's very good, because, you take, like Lint, and you say, hey, look, it started like this in 1985, then in 2000 we did this, and then, 2022, we got the Boy Scouts to do this, and then someone's like, well, I never thought of using the Boy Scouts. Never thought of calling a trade school. We never, thought of calling Aggie and saying, hey, how would you like to be part of this program? Or, where we have certain timber harvests, to maintain some of the forest growth, we say, hey, would the Aggie come down and, do some cuts in some of our areas, do some quarter-acre clear cuts to open it up for some of the smaller animals. And those are the type of things that,
Yeah, and if we wanted to do forest work, there's funding for that. If we wanted to come up with a plan, a forest management plan, there's resources that we could tap into.
Have
So
we
I
been
think-
out to Lynn Farm or the airport where the bike people, we've been out, I haven't been out there. Have they done any work out there or anything?
not that I know of.
Is that the private nonprofit?
Yeah,
The
they've
old
got a
airport?
trailer out there now. I know there's a trailer there where they keep their stuff and stuff, but I've never seen, I don't spend a lot of time out there, it's out of the way, but I'm right in that area. I've never really seen anybody biking in there, but I'm sure they're using it.
I see people in there once in a while. I was biking in there a
'Cause they were
month
gonna do
ago.
groups, they were gonna do groups of 8 or 10.
Yeah, and I haven't
no-
seen that.
Yeah,
I haven't
And it was
noticed.
very limited when they were going to do it. It was
Yeah.
like one group. and
Right.
It
Couple
was not
times.
when it was muddy and,
right. Because I know they said they were gonna
Winter.
maintain the trails and they would
Yeah.
do stuff to keep it.
Yeah.
So,
Amanda.
as Regan mentioned earlier, I can definitely, I have a few kind of mission statements I've taken from other towns that I can kind of consolidate and make it so it's, geared toward this town. And then David drafted a memo in regards to the commission creating this subcommittee. So I can send that out to the other boards. I think first, we need to see if these other boards would even have an interest in having a member, sit on the committee. And then, we can receive feedback from other boards and
Somebody's
then
waving their
ultimately
hand.
decide, how many other board members we want sitting on the committee, and which boards.
how the chair is going to work and vice chair and
So
minutes.
similar to
So it
the
would be-
CPC committee that I'm on, which is people from different rec, water,
Oh, there's pros and cons to that, because everybody gets overcommitted with too many
Yes.
boards that they have to be on. So having some fresh blood, especially on an open space committee of people who are interested in going out and doing stuff and have the time to commit.
Yep.
I feel like, in my experience, when you get one individual that's on too many boards, they have their passions, and,
Right.
if they're on historical and history is their passion, we don't want people being like, all right, who on historical is going to be on the open space committee?
Right.
Like, "Not me,
Exactly,
who is it? You? All
exactly.
right, fine, I'll
Thank
do
you.
it, and
Yeah.
then, show up, right? Like, we want people to be like,
I know
yes,
one
open
of the-
space.
Some towns, for that exact reason, instead of having, board members actually sit on the committee, they'll have them just be liaisons. So when there's, an item in the open space plan that they're working on, that specifically relates to recreation, there would be someone from, the rec committee that the open space committee could reach out to, work with, in accomplishing that objective or task. So that's another thing, because overcommitment is
If
even
we
like-
something to
require, if we say
point.
one member from historical, one member from recreation, and then, it doesn't leave the flexibility to have 5 or however many passionate people, regardless of, like, we would never say, no, you're on rec, you can't be on open space, like, somebody could
He went away.
Hand fell off.
participate, but I don't know if I like to limit.
You made him hold his hand up.
You get tired of waiting.
What happens when you go to home and you're not,
No,
you're not
like,
here?
I think we send it out to the board, see what they got. It's our commission, so, we can say, yeah, we sent it out to everyone, but I think you have a great point. All right, so now we've got somebody going to CPC, then we've got someone going to open space. Then before you know it, the person who agreed to meet once or twice a month is now going to meet once or twice a month with the main board, and then is now committed to once or twice
Yes.
a month with other things.
Other boards.
And then that person's going to say,
Too
this is
much.
just too much.
Yeah, I'm done. And now you get
But,
nothing.
Yeah.
Like Reagan says, I think maybe, like, the chairman should come from us, and then
They report, and then if they're a subcommittee, they'll report back to us. They'll give like a report, the minutes of their meeting, and it'll be part of our agenda, and we can read their minutes, and, Caitlin can liaise and go to those meetings as if necessary, Yeah, I
Again,
like the
one
idea.
thing-
But I like the idea of having something crafted so that when we send it to the other boards, they're like, oh yeah, this is something I really am interested in, or no, I don't think, like something that we have sort of finalized. And obviously we'd be open to feedback, but, this is the
So
idea
I
of what we're
will-
putting forward.
So the memo that Dave put together, I'll go through it, revise it based on feedback that I've heard tonight, and then I can send it around to everyone. And then if, there's anything I missed or anything you think of after that you think should go in the memo, I can add that before sending it out.
There's always, we could maybe draft a letter that we want to send out to the town and say, we're going to have an open space committee. These are the things that we're talking about. Does anybody have any feedback? Is there interest in becoming a member of this commission? Thoughts of the open space? I mean, those are all.
I think that would, once it's been established, recruiting volunteers would be the next step.
Yeah, listing the appointment as an opportunity, just like a vacancy on this board. It would be, have vacancies on an open space committee. If you're interested, submit your letter of interest to.
I guess we need to determine whether we're the ones who appoint the members. But again, I agree that I think we need to have it as something separate, because we don't want it at any time in the future that someone from this commission could dictate what happens on open space, because that might be too bad. That might turn out poorly. You see what I mean?
What's your concern?
What's that?
What's your concern?
That the open space isn't independent.
Why do you think it needs to be independent?
I think they have to have, we've had, if you have, say, a commission that becomes more towards the building as opposed to
So,
a commission.
sorry
that-
to interrupt, but the open space subcommittee would not be independent from the commission. It's a subcommittee of the commission, and so one of the things that the conservation commissions have authority over is, protection of open space. So essentially what this commission is going to do is give that authority to the open space committee to manage. So definitely will very much always be connected.
I see your
But
concerns, though, but I think that would be for up to us
Yeah,
to
just
stay on the
just thinking out
board
loud
and-
of things that could go awry
Yeah.
that we, to plan,
Yeah, but
but.
And so the memo will go to the select board. Been thinking about it, the select board makes appointments for all the other town boards, including, subcommittees. If they're, if that's something that they're, want to take on, I think, that's definitely something to consider.
So
Just keep
there's
it
a possibility
consistent.
that we could appoint the members for open space, or they'd have to go through.
So it would be similar to, like, the appointment process to get on this commission.
I don't think that's a bad idea to, I guess that
the
would be
select
the
board
check and
could ultimately
balance
say,
for us.
you
so
don't
that-
need this, and, you guys handle it, but I think, it makes sense in terms of just keeping it consistent with how the town does things.
I nominate Al as chairman.
Al's gonna be chairman here soon. Right, Dave Turry?
Open space.
oh my goodness.
Al has nothing better to do.
Al- work on his car and
Yeah.
go to meetings.
Yeah. Another 3 years, I'll be retiring maybe.
Right, does,
I think David
think
keeps trying to
David
tell
keeps
us.
trying to
So
say
we're gonna
something.
draft some more ideas to share. Well, we all have to vote on it.
It's like Charlie's Angels here.
He had his hand up for a while, then he put
Yeah.
it down again.
He was speaking, I think, but he didn't have permission. So,
They might have had to come in and change his diaper.
I'm sure he's
We're
not
on
sending me
television.
I know.
nasty text messages.
We're gonna say some things like that about you when you're not here.
I don't care. I love
to
that.
him.
Bring it on.
He knows
All right.
we love him.
Maybe he's not.
Did you hear my phone going off earlier? That's him texting me.
Oh, don't
I want to
even
get
say
on
that.
when you tell him.
Okay, so
All right, hearing none?
do we move on to the bylaw amendments?
Send you a picture.
This is what he sent me.
I think that's.
Okay,
Moving on to the bylaw amendments.
So,
Oh, the bylaw amendments.
proposed bylaw amendments, so these would be put in for the warrant for the Springtown meeting. The proposed amendments and changes deal with the exemptions that are under the bylaw. So,
What
One thing-
prompted this?
the conversation had gotten started because the bylaw did not include sewer, which the Wetlands Protection Act has updated to include sewer as a utility that would fall under that particular exemption. And then in those discussions, I started looking into some of the minor project exemptions, and for just to briefly go over the minor project exemptions, those are activities that take place only in buffer zone, not within any resource areas, except for certain activities in riverfront area. Although none of the proposed amendments or changes.
What about stormwater drainage? Is that be included in
Drainage.
sewer?
No.
So, I mean, that does nothing that needs to be added to the buffer zone for the town?
So there are a lot of different exempt minor projects under the Wetlands Protection Act. I picked out 8 that pretty much would be either, a utility company or DPW or the town who would be, who these would apply to. So some of them are installation of underground utilities, electric, gas, water within existing paved or unpaved roadways, installation or repair of underground sewer lines within existing paved or unpaved roadways, removal of existing utility equipment, poles, anchors, lines along existing and approved roadways, vegetation cutting for road safety maintenance, installation, repair, replacement, or removal of signs, support braces, anchors, foundations along existing roads, pavement repair, resurfacing, and reclamation of existing roadways within the right-of-way configuration. So a lot of these are, projects that would be associated with, like replacing a stop sign that someone knocked over or that is, faded, or the the post is rotting.
Is
things like
this
that.
What town meeting is this for?
This spring meeting, which I believe will be in May.
And when is it due?
The warrant closes on the February 24th.
So coming up pretty fast. And so are you just adding the word sewer into this, or is this all an amendment? Is adding the following minor projects 1 through 8, are those in there now? Or are you adding all of this?
So currently, there are no minor project exemptions for activities in buffer zone under the bylaw. So those would be new additions.
Could we just say that minor activities exempted by the Wetland Protection Act are also exempted under this bylaw? Instead of listing them in case they change any that are under the WPA, so we go in line with what they have?
Yeah, that is a possibility. If the commission wanted to just include all the minor project exemptions that are listed under the Wetlands Protection Act, a lot of them are pretty similar.
It would only be if we wanted to be stricter on some things, and I would suggest we don't. Or if we wanted to add additional things that are exempt under our bylaw that wouldn't be exempt under the Wetland Protection Act.
I'm sorry.
My question would be, are they specific things? Because, for instance, in my issue with water, I have a hydrant that gets hit. It's in a wetlands area. I don't have time to be coming in front of the board and saying, hey, I got to dig the street up, fix the main, and put the hydrant in. I just do it.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a water service, for instance, on Lincoln Road or over in that area that happened to have been a member of this board that owned a house there, and the water service was leaking, and I started digging it up, which obviously was dug up before, and the water service was in place 4 feet deep, and he blew a gasket and says, hey, that's a vernal pool, and I basically told him, I don't care what it is, that house needs water, and I have a job obligation to get them water. So I dug it up anyway.
I think we should just follow what the WPA exempts.
Are those items in the WPA, stuff like that?
Utilities. Yeah,
All
I
utilities,
didn't bring it with me, but we'd have to
DPW.
read it.
So that's,
You don't carry that around?
I do actually. I usually carry it to
Yeah.
the meetings.
so
I
it's,
have it in the binder, and I didn't bring it to me.
Where the binder was?
That's kind of what we're discussing.
maintaining, repairing, or replacing, but not substantially changing or enlarging an existing and lawfully located structure or facility used in the service of the public to provide electric, gas, water,
Yeah, okay.
sewer, telephone, telegraph, or other
Basic utilities.
Yeah, although the current bylaw does not have sewer in there.
Right, because we don't have sewer in our town, really.
Not yet.
Not yet, but it might be coming, but we don't have it. It's private. We only have private sewage in town. We don't have any public.
Oh, okay, so that's good
That's
to know.
why it's
That's
probably not
probably
in.
why they didn't exempt sewer, is
Yes.
because we don't have any
We don't
in
have it
town.
here in Norfolk.
Is there anything missing from the WPA that's in ours? That would be my
That's
question.
the same question I have.
You know, it's okay to accept those, but if they're not going to make the allowance for like existing structures or specifically replacing an equipment identical, that wouldn't affect the footprint or the runoff or anything like that.
So what about,
So I think, I chose these ones specifically because, so while they're exempt, there is still the burden for, the applicant, whoever is doing the work, to provide notice to the commission, stating, this is what I'm doing and this is why it's exempt. And you then would run into the issue of, someone saying, oh, well, that's not a wetland, or, making those determinations. So if the commission did want to just include all of the minor project exemptions under the act, maybe including
think
more detailed guidance on what exactly someone would need to do to provide notice to the commission. So, you know, you don't have.
I think this is good. I think, you know, since it's February 1st, and this is the only meeting we have before February 24th, you know, it's very difficult for me. I feel like we're going to town meeting, or we're asking people to vote, to not be able to review the bylaw and see what we're talking about and see track changes and make an articulated vote on what we're actually changing. I need more time, and to actually, I think it's my duty as a commissioner to read what we're doing and spend a lot of time on it. So that I wouldn't want our select board members to be like, oh yeah, town administrator said it's good. Yeah, do it. Like, I just feel like I need to spend more time with this and understand it. I don't think we should write a lot of letters in here, because then the WPA changes and then we're not on sync with them. We don't want to edit the bylaw and have to go to town meeting every year because they decide to change something. You know, I think.
This is DPW drawn as well, though. There's times that you can't notify anybody. I've got customers that, well, you didn't notify me, you were shutting the water main down. Well, the water main didn't notify me that it was gonna blow out of the street.
Yeah.
You follow me? So that's where I think, I know
need
where
to
this
add
is coming from,
exceptions.
but there's stuff that the DPW does, like we have a sign gets ran over by a car, we gotta go out and we gotta fix that sign, and we don't have time, the DPW doesn't have time to go to us, to the commission, and say, I gotta fill out a permit and let you know. We go out and fix it. And I think that's where this is driving, is a lot of that.
Yes, I agree. I don't think we should regulate things.
You know.
I think we should be, like, we should only regulate what we need to regulate, and we shouldn't be stopping. The point is to make a healthy community. We're protecting wetlands for the benefit that wetlands provide for us. We shouldn't have trees falling on people's houses and people running through stop signs
Right.
and streets flooding because we're worried that
we're
we're
waiting
gonna.
for a permit
Yeah,
to
we're
be cleared.
waiting, you know, and that's what emergency
Yes.
certifications are. The Wetland Protection Act allows all of that. Right now, this is us regulating us. So we want to make sure that, are we only reviewing things that we need to be reviewing? But I think I can't read this in 5 minutes and say, yes, put it to town meeting on, in May. Like, I don't feel like any ownership over it. I think
We
it's
have time
good,
for
but
this
I
still,
can't
don't
read it
we?
in 5 minutes and go to town
When
meeting.
did you say that it closes the warrants?
February 24th.
February 24th.
24th.
Oh, wow.
We have no
Although
Yeah,
I think
that's-
they're,
We just got the information. I got,
I
we
could
got this
be,
email like Monday.
I could have this mistaken, but I believe there is a way to
Give
kind of
extension.
earmark it. So, have the warrant go through as, changes to the exemptions under the bylaw, and, those specific language could come later. And I could be wrong on that, but I believe that's something that it has been done and can be done.
So we can put it on the warrant and then give them
Amend
the
it.
language afterwards,
Probably.
before the,
David
has his
wants to
hand
say
up.
something.
It's
David?
been up for a minute again.
He's awake.
I'm awake. I was eating some ice cream.
Eating some ice cream.
Yeah, I agree with what was just been said. What we can do is state that we will have a warrant regarding an issue, save that space, and then we write it and then deliver it in April or, later this month. And all members have to have time to read it. We've got to have the history and the reasons why this should be proposed and why the town should be accepting whatever changes we want to do. So I think just notifying the Board of Selectmen that, yes, we do have a warrant that we want to put in place. We're just putting the words together, and we can work on that. I can work with Caitlin and whatever, and then we can send it around to all the members, and if everybody's agreement, then we'll submit it. This month.
Track changes of what we're changing that's available for any member of the public, because they're the ones any resident in Norfolk should be understanding what they're voting for. And so how we clearly
Correct.
articulate what people are voting for, you know, I want them to be able to read it and easily understand what changes we're
Simplicity.
making.
You want it simple.
Yeah,
This is
everything
what-
coming out of this board, people, when they're voting for it, they need to understand what they're voting for. And I need to be able to stand up at town meeting and say, I own this, and I am asking all of you at town meeting to vote for this. You know, and I like the idea of adding exemptions, I'm just feeling uncomfortable with not feeling like I've had any time to spend with it.
Yeah, we shouldn't rush it. And if we don't do it for the May meeting, we can do it for the fall meeting.
That's always
Yeah.
true.
That might be better, you know, and again, we're not rushing out, issuing a stop work order when you're flooding the road with, you know, or somebody's doing a stop sign, or if there's, you know, if they're doing electric power, you know, we gotta, on a certain level, look at what, you know, we're here to do enforcement because that's a tool for us to be able to help protect our shared resources, not to be able to create cumbersome, processes for people when they're not actually doing any harm.
Correct.
So, you know, it's like you pull, the police pull you over and say, Joe, you're speeding, you know, do you know what the speed limit is on the street? You know, and they're, all right, you're getting a warning tonight. You know, they don't necessarily, oh, it's the law, I'm gonna give you a speeding, I'm gonna give you $250 and we're going to court because you were going 5 miles an hour. You know, we use the tools that are at our disposal for what we feel is appropriate, depending on what the violation is.
I would
The
tell
other
the
question
officer
is-
when he was at.
The other question I have is just
And then you get the ticket.
kind of on the same side is, you have a fire hydrant issue, or you're replacing street signs. So we've gone from a 4-inch square pole, we're going to a 6-inch square pole. One gets run over, you put up the new ones as you're replacing them.
Yep.
So does this document mean that you need to come in front of us because you're putting up a newer pole that's
That's
4 by
already
6?
there.
Or do we need to put in something in the aspect of public safety or public health? This can be overridden. I mean, what if you go to replace a fire hydrant and the road's been widened, but somebody ran into it and you can't legally put it where it is, where it was,
Right.
because it's in the right of way, you have to move it, and it's moving
Which has
closer
been
to the
done,
wetlands.
exactly. We've
So
done that.
is that something that,
I think that's where this is driven. Is this DPW
Yeah, so this
driven,
is-
more or less? Kind of, this warrant?
Yeah, and a lot of these do touch upon that as long as in the right-of-way, because, yeah, things do get widened.
but I kind of look at what happened.
Similar to how, you know, with Eversource, you know, they have their right-of-way maintenance for their transmission line. You know, they could
Yeah.
put up a new, you know, H tower anywhere in that line, and that would still, you know, not be substantially changing that facility, even though it might be in a wetland when it wasn't before. So, I mean, these minor project provisions aren't that forgiving. You know, they only, you know, involve buffer zone only
I
projects.
think what we need to stop is somebody put in a culvert in a street because they think they can fix it that way without getting our
Yeah,
approval.
right.
And I think that,
Well,
what we
drainage
just went
isn't
through,
exempt
because,
under the Wetlands Protection Act, so we couldn't even exempt that if we wanted to.
so I think that when they start, you know, even DPW, if they've got to put in a culvert, they need to come through us. Do we need a recharge station?
Yeah,
So
I
it's
think
not
this is
like.
more for minor stuff, not, that would have to be engineered and designed anyway.
Yeah.
So-
It's not a pre-existing.
This is just for minor stuff, and like I said, in my profession, I've never even thought about it. I have,
David-
you know,
David's got his hand up.
No, I don't. Well,
I think that was just
but you know what I'm saying, in my profession, like that water service line, the last thing I'm thinking of is that there's a vernal,
Right.
vernal pool there, or what have you. I'm focused on the lines here, it's going to that house, and I have to put a new one in because they don't have water, and it's a health issue.
Right.
So I dig it and I put it in, and I'm not even thinking about, you know, I'll answer later, but
Yeah.
And I think that's
No, I
what
think
these are.
it then becomes just the policy and procedures of working in wetlands that, hey, then maybe the trucks need to have certain, like those, they're dry socks and you put them down and then they swell up when you get water, so that if, as you're digging it up, none of that goes into
Yep.
the wetlands. So
Right.
that could be something that, hey, when you are working in wetlands, this is what we expect you to put up,
Right.
some temporary socks to prevent anything going towards the wetlands.
And then that's,
And those are-
again, yeah, you're right, and that's what we usually do. I try to use common sense out there, but sometimes you focus on something and it's, you don't think of that. But, we know when there's vernal pools, we see wetlands there, and we're gonna put our digging to the other side. We're not gonna put it in the wetlands, But I think that this is DPW driven, that DPW would like some leniency on what we do out there when it comes to changing a street sign, replacing it, and it is in a wetlands.
Yeah.
We just want to take it out, put a new one in, and not have to go through a permitting process and wait 6 months or whatever to do that.
No, as long as, when you start, you sock off the area like we'd expect. So,
Yep.
if you're doing an emergency sign repair, then, yeah, you follow the same procedures that we would expect if you got a full permit. So if the full permit would be temporary sock around it, then that's what you have to do. So do we draw up, take some of these things and that you're talking about and say, all right, if I'm doing a fire hydrant repair, if I'm within 200 feet of a wetlands, then I need to sock it with this size sock this far away, and I have to put the materials in a certain area, or they have to be put in a dump truck and then load it back in. And I think having those procedures in place would help.
Because it has happened.
Well, you get a new person, and you get somebody that worked, as a landscape heavy equipment operator. You bring them onto your job, and you can say, hey, these are the things that you need to look at. You have it in the truck, and he goes, okay, I'm doing a fire hydrant. Flip through. All right, these are the things I need to do.
Seekonk Street would be a perfect, we had a water main break there years ago by the cemetery, where the culvert is there. The break happened, all the silt and everything from the road went right into the wetlands, and I mean, it went in there, and I ended up bringing in a vac truck and vacuuming it all out. Because the Conservation Commission, they were like, whoa, and I agree, but it was one of those things. But we went in there and we cleaned it all out with the vac truck back then. But, I just think, my opinion is there are some things that need to be a leniency when it comes to.
And it's good insight because you work with the fellow members, and so you have an insight that, hey, we're working on a job, this is what happens, this is what we're trying to do.
Right.
It's 1 o'clock in the morning and I get a fire hydrant break. What can we realistically expect from them and what they really need to do?
Yep.
To be able to make the area, safe and secure and.
And then, of course, if it did damage the wetlands, then we come back the next day, we'll work with it, and we'll get it cleaned up. We'll do what we gotta do. But at that moment, the main concern is shut that water main down, and then let's fix it and give people water, and then we'll deal with the after effect later, so.
Well, I want some time to read this. I want to understand what the bylaw says, what changes we're making, and then I want to compare this list to what the Wetland Protection Act
Agreed.
exemptions are.
Yeah, definitely, because it might be covered already.
Well, what you could do is, you could word it so that you could say, accepting the WPA with these amendments or, expansions, and then you have your list with, as long as you use the proper verbiage that which one has priority. Like ours would have to have priority because you wouldn't include it otherwise. You see what I'm saying? So there's ways of
Yeah, if it's
satisfying
not
yourself.
exempt under state law, then we have to get a permit anyway. We can't exempt something that's not
Right.
exempted under state law. We could only make it stricter where we're saying it's not regulated under state law, but under our bylaw, you have to come before us
Right.
for review. Should we so desire.
Yeah, except isn't this saying the opposite? These are the things where you don't have to come before the board, right?
Yes.
Yes.
So
Right,
this,
so-
yeah, so.
Exempt
But these
stuff.
these are exemptions that already exist under the state regulations.
These ones specified.
Yes, and so these amendments would just be making the bylaw a little bit less strict when it comes to certain projects.
And
Which
just to be
I support.
devil's advocate, if we did vote these in, and the state changed their laws, would we be better off because we'd already have those laws still in place?
If they changed
They
their
became-
exemptions and made something not exempt, then it would be stricter and it would,
We'd be stricter,
we'd be stricter.
yeah. So what I'm saying is if we put them in, then we wouldn't have to worry about the state changing their bylaws, we'd be
Right.
stricter.
Right.
But then again, if they took them off, then,
I don't think the Wetland Protection Act
I
is
don't-
going to change
yeah.
anytime soon, to be honest. I mean, I know I said that because if they did change it, our language would just follow what they are exempting and not, unless we wanted something that was stricter where we wanted to review something
Yeah.
that they didn't require we review. But I don't think, from my knowledge of the list offhand, I can't think of anything that I would really feel strongly about reviewing that they don't, that I feel like we would need to go the extra layer on.
Yeah, I think it'd be very unlikely that in any of our tenures, the minor project exemption section would get amended in the regulations.
So do we need to vote to hold a spot
Do-
right now? Or to have a warrant drawn up? How do we go proceed with making sure we have a spot, a warrant?
So I can reach out to the town administrators and see if that is a possibility. If not, then, we can push this into the fall. If it is, I can find out the specifics, and I have a draft red line edits already going that would be included in the warrant article. So I can make the changes that we discussed and then send that out to you guys. If it is a possibility, and then that's something we could, everyone could agree upon on March 1st.
so instead of doing the spring, we do the fall, it'll give us a little more opportunity to look at this, you think, or?
Unless we can do
The amended.
Well, the thing is, I think once we get a warrant on there, we can discuss it. It gives us a month or two, or our next meeting, we can.
Oh, okay.
If we decide we don't want to do anything, we can pull the warrant, I believe.
So we could
Yeah,
make a motion to add the warrant article with specifying the language at our meeting next month. Would that be something agreeable to some?
Yeah, I would think.
I think you need to put the subject matter of what the warrant article
I guess it
is.
depends on how quickly we'll get the red line changes to what you're doing. If you get it to us like this week or next week, then yeah, March 1st seems doable. But if I get it on February 27th, then I'm not going to be any more in a better shape than I am right now. So.
I agree, it's kind of quick. It is,
Like,
maybe
I
it's
feel
better off
like
to be in the fall.
starting now for fall is we've got
Watch him.
plenty of time.
He's the reason we're doing this.
Well, not me, but I know, I have a good idea on who is and why this is coming about. And I agree with it. I agree that some things have to be changed so that you don't have to go through the third degree to change a stop sign pole, but on the other hand, we can't be just jumping into something either.
Or
So
With only a month
the
to
issue seems
decide
to
it.
be if
Or
we can
just
review these by March
driving down
1st, or
Lake
if we
Street
need to
with a
go
bulldozer.
farther.
Yes,
Right?
Mm-hmm.
If we think we have enough
Which
time
did
to
happen.
review and discuss this officially in March, or if we need to push back farther. Should we shoot for spring and hope, or should we shoot for fall and no?
I think you should shoot for spring, because you're slower now.
What's that?
Your meetings are slower now, I mean, everything's a little bit slower now during the winter months. You should shoot for the spring.
Well, for us, it's the same. We have one meeting a month, and depending on how quickly you get stuff to it, we review it for the meeting. For
Right.
me, I'm a working mother, so
Well,
it doesn't matter. My day job is still the same. I'm busy. I have 10 meetings on my next agenda, so.
So
I'm not
what we
doing
could
this during
do
the
is,
day.
we can put it on for next month, or vote that we're going to do it and go over it next month. If next month we don't get the stuff until the 27th, then we fairly reasonably don't have enough time to actually act on it, we can vote again next
Pull the
month.
warrant, go to.
But at
full
least
warrant.
if we,
They would vote to postpone the agenda item until the fall.
correct.
That's what it would
Yes.
be.
Yeah,
the
well,
vote
all we're
at
doing
the
now
motion
is
at
just
the
holding
town
the
meeting
agenda
until
item.
slot.
until
I
the
mean,
fall.
if we
Yeah.
get the stuff in a week or two,
Yep.
then it gives us a couple weeks to all review it.
And I think what Dave is saying as well is we just got to have like a proposed bylaw amendment. We have to have something to put on the slot,
Yeah.
a name, is what we're doing.
And, we could discuss it as far as little as much as we want to put on this spring one. And maybe we want to look at it further of something more encompassing later on, if that seems to be. So maybe this first one might be something simpler, as you were talking about, just, like stop signs and fire hydrants and that type of stuff, where it's simpler. And then if we want to do something bigger, we do it in the fall. Or we get all the information that you're looking for by next meeting, and then it's on the spring. So,
I think it would make sense to do it all at once.
I
I
agree.
feel like it's
So,
a,
as long
it's
as
a
we-
lot, because, changes, then all the applicants need to know about the change. It should be posted on our website. They do have like a PDF of all the bylaws that needs to be updated, so when we change, it kind of, there's a lot of administrative changes behind the scenes that go into changing something. But I'm happy to review it, but I like that idea. We could vote to put it, if we can, a placeholder in, and then reconvene March 1st and see how we feel and whether we postpone it to the fall. If it's possible.
Is this an amendment or is this an addition? Would be my
Amendment.
question. Are we amending something that's already
Anytime
there?
you change a bylaw, you're changing it, you're amending the bylaw. Yeah.
Even if it's an adding, something
Yeah.
added still?
Any word change or anything, you're changing your law. We're rewriting our law,
Even if it's just an addition.
even if it's just an addition, yep. And then the regulations would need to possibly reflect, we might have to adjust our regulations to reflect any changes in the bylaw.
But we definitely want to, I think, at least add sewer, because we could have a private company start going in amok.
Well, we have sewer coming
And
down
so-
Meeting House to across the street from Silla's. There's a pump station there that pumps the sewage from Silla's and Walgreens up to the private, well, it's not private, the town owns it, septic wastewater plant at the top of the hill. But again, it's kind of private because it does all of Meeting House condos, Silla's, and Walgreens. But it is in the road, it is in, so it is, we do have sewer per se, but not a lot of it. And it was privately owned and the town took it over at one point, because I oversee it.
Aren't you lucky?
Yeah.
So do we have to vote to put this on the agenda, or do we keep it in the section it's in? Like, does
I
it need
think
to
we
be
have to
changed?
vote to put a warrant article on the
Okay.
town meeting warrant.
And that would be for amendments to the project exemptions under the bylaw, which is section C. Currently, I don't believe the AG's office has come back with the fall town warrant items where the E-code was accepted, so I think at this point, we're still using so it'd be Article 2. No.
So are we,
Section C exemptions under the bylaw.
That's what I'm saying. We gotta have that, whatever we're gonna put in for, we gotta
Okay,
make sure
so-
we're putting it in. So section C exemptions.
Okay,
wanna-
so once we
right?
get,
And then, yeah, I should be able to get an answer pretty quickly on whether or not that's possible.
okay. Seems fair enough.
Yeah. Then we'll discuss it in March, and if we decide we don't wanna do it, just pull it.
Yeah.
Right, Dave? Dave?
Dave?
he doesn't have the right to speak yet.
What in God's name was that?
That was
I was in the last.
his window.
You need to shut off his screen.
Maybe
Oh,
I
there
should-
he is.
Oh, that's his little floating head on the bridge there.
He's leaning out the window.
We can't hear you.
What did you do, fall asleep?
I think he fell out the window.
Oh, Dave, okay. There he is.
We can't hear you.
I don't know what's going on. Don't know why it's,
Looks like a ghost.
Maybe he muted when the lady came in.
Oh,
David.
there he is. All right, we can hear you now, right?
Okay,
Hi, Dave.
yeah, I'm in agreement.
We just wanted to say goodbye to you as well.
Nice.
Okay,
We'll be seeing you next month?
maybe. Might be in the Caribbean,
Thanks.
but I'll have assignments for you, Alan. Sure.
All right.
Go home.
Yes.
Put that into a motion, would you?
Yeah. So who would
Beard's
like,
coming in nicely.
who would like to make, who would like to make the motion here? We got-
Reagan's going. I don't know how to make this
So-
motion, to be honest. Does anyone
Anybody
have a
have-
clear idea on how to make this motion or no? Because I'm
Not me, myself,
Well, we're going to make a motion to add a warrant article to the warrant for the Springtown meeting for proposed bylaw amendments to the wetland protection, Norfolk wetland protection bylaw.
that sounds good to me. I'll second that motion.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. All right, does, any other business? We got everything? No. I think we're good? No one has anything else?
No.
Now I just need a motion to adjourn our meeting.
Maggie Crow, so moved.
Al Finney seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Well, that was a long one.